California's Death Valley is a land of extremes, one of the hottest, driest, and lowest points on Earth.
One of my colleagues said that I'd never get students to go to Death Valley because it sounded too morbid. And it turned out that what they really liked was that it's exotic. It sounds really exotic, so they want to come.
Nicholas Christie-Blick is a geologist at Columbia University's Lamont Doherty Earth Observatory. This past spring, he led his 10th group of undergraduates to Death Valley. Death Valley National Park is part of the Basin and Range Province, a landscape still being actively shaped today as the western United States stretches apart. As cracks open in Earth's crust, mountains are uplifted and valleys dropped down. In the Basin and Range, steep mountains alternate with flat, dry valleys, like a chain of dominoes running from Idaho to northern Mexico. This striking landscape happens to be a spectacular place to look at rocks, where it all hangs out, as the writer John McPhee put in his geology classic, Basin and Range.
Nick teaches by posing questions and letting the students come to their own conclusions based on observations that they can make at the rock.
One of the things that geologists like to do is think in 3 dimensions, and it turns out that not everybody can think that way. And so I like to walk them up onto a ridge where they can stare down in both directions and see what the attitude of the fault is. I get them to bring notebooks, and I get them to make a sketch at the first outcrop. And as soon as they start hauling out their notebooks and making sketches, all of a sudden they're looking. And in the end, it doesn't matter what they learn. There's no set curriculum. It's the whole business of looking and realizing that science is about making connections between observations and interpretations.
1 billion years of Earth's history are exposed in the Death Valley region. With just 7 days to see it all, Christie-Blick sets a punishing pace.
We go to a place called Gower Gulch where the students can actually see that the fault is made up of several components, and that there's not just one fault surface, but really a fault zone. We spent a whole day going down the western side of the Black Mountains. It's an active fault. We look at the interaction between the faulting and the lake level changes. There was a deep lake in Death Valley, and the way in which that influences the sedimentation and the erosion, and they get to take it all apart and see how they all work together. We look back in geological time, and one of the things you can cover there is the explosion of life in the early Cambrian, the transition from a very primitive life to a much more complex life. And they like collecting trilobites, and we also look at a variety of other fossils and crinoids and bryozoa, and they like the straight nautiloids that we look at in the Mississippian. I'm trying to communicate the idea that science is vibrant. It isn't a series of potted facts that you learn and reproduce on the exam. It's how you think about things.
I think this is why we become geologists. We have an experience like this where we get to really hands-on, kind of full immersion in the field and the rocks.
Roar, lion, roar, from a mile on the Hudson shore.
Uniformly, they look back on the trip and they say that it was an important experience. Even if they wind up majoring in some completely other field, they look back and say that Death Valley influenced their studies a great deal, and it changes how they think about the planet.